Hi, Rosalie, Stacy, Jordan. Nice to see you all.
Hey there.
How's everyone doing? Happy
Good.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Yay. 23 yet? Oh. Hey, Mindy, there's no mental health initiative for staff, is there?
I will report on, there is a training. There are trainings available. Is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, or, just trying to do something nice for all the staff. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm really talking about. I just,
Rosalie, I thought that our weekly calls were for mental health.
Yeah, I think everyone's on a brink right now.
Yes, so I was planning on sharing some of the initiatives that we have going on and some of the trainings. So I'll let you know about that shortly.
Okay.
Give it another minute. We don't have a lot of people, and Greg was not able to join us this morning. And Brian is out, which I'll share in a minute.
That's no problem.
Hi, David. Good morning. You are on mute.
Hi, Mindy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Just sitting here having a nice morning in the Capitol.
Excellent. All right. Well, we have a small group today, but we can go ahead and give updates. I know we're recording this and can send it out. First thing I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first meeting of the year. I hope everyone is doing well. Hope you and your families are staying healthy and safe. Greg is not available today, and Brian is out. Hopefully all of you know their baby arrived on December 29th. Penny Juliet Hurstig, and he'll be back on January 24th. So he'll be back soon. I wanted to also let everyone know about Julie Gibbs leaving the Federation. I don't know if you saw the press release that went out, but she started her career at the Symphony and is actually, her career is coming full circle, and she's going back to the Symphony to become the Vice President of Philanthropy and Vice President of Development and Chief Philanthropy Officer. So her last day of Federation is February 4th, but she asked me to share, she knew we were having this meeting this morning and asked me to share a few words with you. So I said I would be happy to do that. She said, it's been a true honor to work in the Jewish community the last 17 years and appreciate all the relationships and connections I've made. I'll stay connected as a volunteer. I'll be so proud to represent the Jewish community out in the larger community. But she wanted to make sure that I shared that with all of you. And I know that you all have relationships with her. She will be very missed, and we're excited about her new opportunity. I know mental health is on a lot of people's minds. I can give some updates shortly on some work that Federation is doing in that area that we want to share with all of you. Make sure you're aware, make sure you get it out to your staff and constituents. But David is joining us from the Capitol, so wanted to see if you had updates to give, because I know it's been pretty busy.
It's a little busy, but always have time and be happy to answer any questions. So we're like 2 weeks into the session, and obviously folks are following some of it along. And the big issues that we're dealing with right now are things like employer vaccine mandates, and the legislature wants to tell employers they can't require vaccines. We're trying to negotiate a middle path here, which is looking fairly promising at this point. So the one thing I would say to you is you're gonna read all kinds of articles about how crazy the bills are, and some of them are super crazy. But I think by the time we get this thing wound through the process, it will be a fairly reasonable position. Things like you have to allow for religious exemption, and that'll be up to you what that looks like. And if somebody gets injured because of a vaccine, that it becomes a workers' comp claim, which is pretty much the standard today anyway. And so we think that we feel pretty good about that working itself out. for those that are watching the Medicaid expansion front and are concerned about that, the one thing I would tell you is you're going to hear all kinds of in and out about what's happening with the supplemental budgetary requests that include all the Medicaid expansion funding. I think, again, similar to the vaccine mandates, I think we're going to come out of that just fine. And even if we don't, the law is pretty well settled, and it will really be a fight between providers and Health Net. So I think for the most part, Medicaid expansion is settled. It's not going anywhere. Enrollment will continue. And then for those that are watching the fight over CRT and all of the education parental Bill of Rights, we are probably going to have something passed related to parental Bill of Rights. This CRT debate will probably begin to migrate into more of just a parental Bill of Rights for education associations and school districts. So those are kind of the three areas that folks are really concerned about. Redistricting is moving along a path. It will go in fits and starts right now, but I have a feeling that they're on a path to get to a 6-2 map, which is, obviously 6 Republican, 2 Democrats, which is what most people are endorsing right now. And that's kind of the maintenance of the status quo. We will also probably be working a lot on election reform and initiative petition reform. That's a story yet to be written, though. So we'll keep everybody appraised about that and updated on those issues. And then finally, the big issue is going to be governor's going to do a State of the State address next week. He's going to unveil his budget, and we're going to get a glimpse of what, I think publicly we're going to get a glimpse of his intention with $3 or $4 billion in terms of the ARPA funds and what he's going to be appropriating that money to. We know the governor's intention right now is to create large buckets of grant money that can be applied for by organizations like the Federation, like everybody on this call, for various kinds of issues. We're already seeing some of that with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education child care funding. I know we've seen some child care agencies within the Jewish community already get kind of the state's version of PPP that's come through. So those things are moving forward. And then we got all kinds of politics and leadership fights that I'm not going to bore you guys with. But what I will say is that what it looks like at the moment, and these things are always fluid, is the folks that I consider to be kind of the governing moderate Republicans seem to be taking a much tighter hold in terms of taking responsibility for the chambers and leading the chambers, which is, I think, a very good sign for getting some things done as we move forward. That could change pretty quickly, but right now they've got the upper hand of the conversation. So Mindy, I'm going to stop there. I'll try and answer any questions folks have to the best of my ability.
Great, thank you, David. Any questions? Anyone? All right, David, as always, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Take care. Okay, is there anything anybody wants to share? Any questions anybody has? Any updates anybody wants to give? Okay, let me briefly share the mental health work that Federation is doing, so you all are aware of it and can engage in things that are relevant to you and to your constituents. You should have received some emails from us. I think one just came at the beginning of this call. So there are a few things, as you know, every needs assessment we've been doing, whatever the topic, mental health has come up as the greatest need in our community. We're hearing from you, you're hearing from your constituents. So we're trying to look at different effective ways to address this community-wide. So one of the things that Federation is doing is we are providing mental health trainings. So there are 2 different categories of these trainings that we're providing. One is through BBYO's Center for Adolescent Wellness, and these are youth-focused mental health trainings. So we have one that is for staff and volunteers of local Jewish organizations who work with youth. And this is actually a youth mental health first aid certification. It's coming up on January 23rd. We also have a session for parents and caregivers of middle school and high schoolers, which is on January 25th. And then we have a session for middle school and high schoolers themselves. Thank you so much. Rick just posted the link to that. So that one is on January 26th. So we sent out information. We've sent some directly to you. If you have members or constituents that you think would be interested in this, please forward the information. If you have people in your institution, staff, parents that you think would be interested, please let us know. We want to make sure that there are enough people signed up to make it meaningful. And if now is not the right time, we will adjust and find the right time, because as I said, we've heard that this is really important and we want to be able to provide it to the community. So that's one set of trainings that's happening. The other one is more community-wide. These will be facilitated by the Blue Dove Foundation. And there are 3 different workshop areas. One is for staff of local Jewish organizations. And Rosalie, maybe this is what you're talking about, but probably not exactly. But this is mental health training geared towards staff of local Jewish organizations. There's 2 different options in February for those dates. There is a workshop for rabbis and clergy members in February, and then there are opportunities for general community members. So each of these sessions are 2 different workshops. Session 1 is making mental wellness part of your community's culture. And the second session is recognizing when someone is in need of help. So you should have received all of this information. If you are interested, if you know of people who will be interested, please send out that information. We really want to make sure that anyone who's interested has access to these trainings and these services. The 2 other mental health related pieces that I want to point out. One is we put out a mental health and well-being request for proposals. We have funding available for any Jewish organization to apply for something that will enhance the mental health and well-being of individuals in the St. Louis Jewish community. It's pretty broad. The application opened in early December and will be closing next week on January 20th. So if you have interest in that or questions about that, please feel free to reach out, but that application is open online. And then the other one that I know I mentioned here, the Mental Health Care Access Fund. We've been hearing that cost is a barrier for people to be able to receive clinical services. So we've created a pilot. There are dollars available. If you are reimbursing your members or constituents for accessing mental health clinical services, we will reimburse you for that up to a certain amount. So all of that information is online, or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Anybody have any questions about any of that?
I have one question. Did we read somewhere that it needs to be in collaboration with one another, or is it like an individual organization can come up with a initiative?
Individual organization can come up with an initiative. There's another process that we had, which was specifically geared towards young adults. For that, we were encouraging collaboration. And that one, we've already gone through the process and have funded a few pilots, but if people are interested or have an idea, please let us know, and we're happy to talk with you about that.
Okay.
So Rosalie, that isn't what you were asking for. So I'd be curious to hear kind of where you were going and what you were thinking in terms of needs of staff.
It just, staff is exhausted and I don't know really what to do. Especially with this surge keep going up and just shifting their responsibilities constantly. And I don't really know what I'm talking about. I just I know I'm exhausted and I'm sure they're exhausted from me being exhausted. So it's just a vicious cycle. I don't know, but we did go through that behavioral health certification. All of our staff did. It was very good. It was very good. I definitely recommend it, especially on the administrative staff level, because they're the ones that get that first phone call and they did like it. So
Great.
I don't know. I'm open to suggestions from my exhausted staff.
So I would ask, is anybody doing anything that they're finding is making a difference?
What do you, Rosalie, what are you finding is particularly exhausting to them? Like, what are the things that are wearing them down?
So as Anita will know, our early childhood, oh my God, they're just like exhausted every 10 seconds, something is changing. It's just and maybe Anita can speak to it, but it's that quickness of constantly having to pivot and, oh my gosh, this person isn't in and this person's working at home, but these two people are in the office. And, it's just, we have 38 full-time people. So it's just managing their, I don't want to say anxiety. It's their, yay, we're here to work, that thing.
Mhm.
And I would agree with that. It's the exhausting part is doing the job that they've always been doing, whether they're on the preschool side or the congregation side. But the constant pivot and the constant weariness, it really is a drain to have your mind pivoting that many times and do your regular job skills and duties. I know we're all in this together. Like, it is just mindfully exhausting at the end of the day. And we've been doing it for 2 solid years. So it's the speed of everything and just weariness. And so trying to keep that positive, keep everyone's nerves from being on edge, keeping everyone in the yes mode and the helping mode and the loving mode versus get away from me, no, and I've had enough. And so trying to come up with creative ideas, and I know that's kind of what Rosalie was alluding to, is we're out of cute ideas, and honestly, that's not what they want. Honestly, what they want is a year off paid, like, because they just need to heal. So when we have these 3-day weekends or these 4-day weekends, like, they use them, but quite frankly, they're home with their kids and their families. And I don't know on this call who all has busy households and everything. You don't get to relax. You don't get to heal. You just get to keep moving. So it is hard to come up with things that are nominally priced and not a year off to eat bonbons and go to the spa. But, it'd be great for us all to, hang out at the Four Seasons for 3 days, right? Like, it would be great, but we don't get to do that. So ideas are welcome, I'm sure, is what she was thinking about. And even on the congregation side, you all see it with your full-time employees. It's taxing, and we're all asked to do more, and keep up with everything at the same time. So,
And I'm sure, Joan, you see that on like a different level, like we're all open. There was never a time where we weren't available, because
right.
At least for faith, for worship, you had to be available and you had to figure it all out. So, coming up on our 2-year anniversary,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of what I can really do and celebrate that we made it to there.
Mhm.
Like, we laugh, but all that stuff is going into archives, all the PPP stuff, all of the, I think we have to celebrate the 2 years that we made it through, just, yay, but I don't know. That's what I was looking for, Mindy. I'm just at a loss, and all these grants are great, but they're exhausting. They're just exhausting to have. Well, you can apply for this, and then you've got the security grant, and then you've got, the energy grant that's going to come up, and oh, here's this grant, another, and it's just, I can't keep up.
Mhm.
And that's what's so difficult, because I do want to apply for some of these things, and we just haven't, because we don't have the bandwidth
Right.
to do it.
And I don't know about everyone else, but I mean, we are, as most people are well aware, like, we kind of backed off of a lot of our bandwidth. So we're dealing with a smaller number. We don't have 38 full-time staff. We have more like 10 less. So, and half of those are full-time teachers. So they're not writing grants and helping with programming and things.
Yeah, I mean, we've never been offsite this entire time. Obviously, we have 400 older adults that we're in the midst of every day, and their families. And the one thing that I think has been helpful with our staff and keeping the morale positive, it takes time, but it's literally to talk to people individually, even on a daily basis, and just let them say their thing, So I feel like the being heard part and, acknowledged, oh, your husband is ill, this is this, your mom is, you're tired. Oh yeah, yeah. And just to let them have that opportunity to vent seems to keep everybody okay, like you get it out, you feel heard by the person who you're reporting to, or who, you understand your employer has a legitimate interest in you as a human being. And that, everybody's going through this stuff, but I think the outlet, at least for us, obviously our staffs are all very different, but having that outlet to voice the upset seems to be 50% at least of the ability then to move forward with the day.
Yeah. And our lay leadership has been great with all that, the extra this, extra that. I think it's just, remember the old days when this first started happening, and you have to have 3 different ways of doing something, right? Like if you can't do this, you got to do this, then you got to do this. And it was really kind of fun. Like, how come now it's just like, are you kidding me? I have to do this again? Like,
Listen, we just had a discussion at our staff meeting this morning about going back to the earlier COVID protocols of, what kind of mask you have to wear, how often you have to change your gloves, how often we have to clean the elevator buttons, how often, and there was a little bit of like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really, because that is a level of community spread and we have to be responding to that. And
Yeah.
so we have to protect everyone, our staff and our residents, and we don't know who might have it. So we're going to assume everybody has it, and just make that assumption and work accordingly.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, nobody wants to have to do all of that extra stuff. And N95 masks are not as comfortable as cloth masks to wear all day for our maintenance people who are in and out of apartments, all day. So, but, we don't want them to get sick and we don't want to pass any illness between people either. So I just, and of course, everybody's dealing with short staff because of COVID, people who are out with COVID. And for those of us who have never enough staff to do the work that we actually do, it's very hampering. And of course, it puts greater burden on everybody else. But
Yes, yes, and yes. And so,
Right.
Mindy, we go back to you. It's like, we have not applied for a grant. I can't tell you how long, because we just don't have the bandwidth to do it.
So I want to go back to 2 things that I heard. One, about the bandwidth. So, we have funding available and we hear your needs and we want to be able to respond to them. And the way that we know is by putting it out there and you let us know, those specific initiatives or, specific things. If you have suggestions of other ways to do this, because we want to be responding to what we're hearing and we're putting out opportunities, but if you're saying you don't have the bandwidth to even, come to us with ideas, then let's figure out a different way to make this happen. The last thing we want is for this to be burdensome when you are already going through so much. This is actually intended to help you. So if you have other suggestions, please let us know, because we want to be here for the community in this time of need to help you figure out how to address that need. And if it's a grant application is not the answer, let's figure out what the answer is so we can get these dollars out there and help the community. So
I was going to just echo that. When I see apply for this grant, I just just close it and move on, because I'm just like, I can't. It just, my blood, I have really low blood pressure all the time. It just goes up when I see that.
So we have really tried to streamline our application processes because we've heard from you how burdensome it is. So I hope you don't just, delete it and actually look at them, because a lot of them are not really time intensive and in depth. We really want to know the basics because we want to get this money out to the community. But again, let's talk about different ways to do this. We need some type of accountability as we're being stewards of these community resources. So we need some way to track things, but if there are other ways to do it that will be, that will resonate more with you, let's figure out what those can be.
Well, the one thing that I know that impacted us greatly that the Federation offered, and I think most of my colleagues, and at least in the congregations, when we first went into this zone, right? And it was the technology that was like, and some people had it, some people didn't, some people switched to Boxcast, some were to StreamSpot. Yeah. And Federation came out and said, look, we have funds. You send us what you've done and we'll reimburse on a sliding scale, you know, like, I don't know how you figured it out, but you figured it out. That was based on what our needs specifically were on a general area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what,
And that was amazing. That
Yeah.
was probably the most impactful thing through this entire time.
wow, okay, that's great to hear.
Maybe others feel differently, but at least for us, I don't.
So
I
it's
don't
funny
know.
because we look at that as an application also, because we asked everyone to fill something out, but apparently, you know, maybe because you had already done it.
Well, and it was a
was-
general need. It wasn't
Right.
specific. It wasn't like, we're going to fund technology for your computers,
Right,
you know,
right,
versus just, here's a big thing. How can we help you with this one topic?
absolutely. So that's what our hope was with mental health. Here's this big topic. We're hearing there's needs across the board. What are your needs and how can we help you with it? But maybe we're asking too much. So we can rethink that.
I think with the mental health, unfortunately, you really, you're feeding a need because you set up the fact that there can be trainings. There has to be trainings. So if we're identifying, for those of us that know how to identify, you know, that's great, but we have to be able to do training. So I think that, yes, there's going to have to be some effort, but that's more global as well.
Right, well, there's the trainings, but there's also this application.
Right.
So for whatever your needs are, whatever they may be, it's quite broad and quite open. So invitation is there. Please reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to talk through this more because we want it to be a process that works for everybody. And again, gets the dollars out the door for what the needs are. And I want to just go back to something else that Joan said about sometimes people just need to be heard. I so agree with that. You know, for our staff, we gathered together managers and supervisors to hear from them and to understand what their teams were feeling and were experiencing. And sometimes you think, you know, and when you bring people together, the conversation is just really interesting and you hear a lot more. And I think the constant pivot, while it looks very different at Federation than it does for all of you who are providing direct services, it still is really challenging, that ongoing uncertainty, that for us, the back and forth, we're working from home, we're in the office, we're working from home in the office. And also this idea that you know your job and all of a sudden now there's these outside forces and there's elements of your job, you have to learn all new skills. And that was something that we hadn't thought about that has really been challenging for some of our staff, and I imagine for some of yours also. So, and we also haven't figured out, Rosalie, what to do. So this can be an ongoing conversation. I think if people are finding some responses within your organizations that are effective, please share them so we can all learn from each other.
I actually think, I mean, I don't want to be pessimistic, but, you know, realistically, we may never go back to, you know, whatever we thought was normal. And so getting comfortable where you're at, you know, this week, dealing with it, and then next week and dealing with it, and just understanding at an individual level, which is probably something we should do regardless of pandemic, but just the pandemic has made it a higher priority, what the challenges are of the people that we interact with every day, you know, that we don't see necessarily in the workplace, but that absolutely impact their ability to be productive in their job and to be a positive part of the team. And I think COVID has just, you know, heightened that need.
Most definitely. So I would suggest this be an ongoing conversation at these meetings. If people do have ideas, to be able to continue to share them. If you don't have ideas, to be able to continue to share the challenges and you know, maybe brainstorm together. I see that Scott joined us. I don't know if there's anything that you want to share, Scott. anything happening in the community.
I would just urge all of you, and I believe probably most of you on this call are also on my community security liaison list. But we have started sending out information on cybersecurity issues as well. We always have minimally, but now things that could be very important to get to either your third-party vendor or your internal IT person to make sure that our communities remain safe from these threats as well. So that information has been going out, and I know a number of you have responded that you've received it. So good stuff, and we're planning on doing that on a frequent basis in 2022.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you for continuing to share that information.
Yeah, our IT company also appreciates it. So thank you. We pass it on and they're always very grateful for it.
Excellent.
I don't know why it always astounds me, the evil that is out there and the people who just, take these opportunities when they know so many people are virtual, and there are, they look for those weaknesses to just pounce. And
if only they could use their talents for good.
Right. I've heard just these horrible stories of organizations and companies being, really their finances put in jeopardy, and things, things being stolen from them, and them, just their cybersecurity is not up to par, their staff are not trained. And I think there's a lot of things that we can all put in place to make sure that our systems are as safe as possible. So thank you for sharing that. All right, is there anything else, Marion?
Just a question, Mindy, back to that mental health, the reimbursements. I'm having trouble locating it on the Federation website. Can you tell me where it's hiding?
I'm not sure that one is on the website. Hang on one
okay.
second. Let me look right now.
Is there a discount for executive directors?
Put in for it. Here is the information online. Yeah. Tell me if that works. This is the information sheet. And the reimbursement process, it's not online, it's just email Emily Bornstein and be in touch with her directly. And if you have any questions, just reach out to her ahead of time. We've been talking to a lot of organizations. Again, this was a pilot. There was a limited amount of funds set aside to see if this is something, we heard that cost was a barrier. So we wanted to test this out and see if this would be helpful. If it is, we can see about adding more dollars. If it's not, we can see about other ways to address it. But we did put a cap on each organization. So there are funds available for a number of organizations to access it.
Thank you. I have a congregant who's a mental health professional, and she sent me a note about it, but, I didn't want to take her word. I wanted to see it directly from the source, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll continue to, we're trying not to bombard everybody with emails. So, we're really trying to limit what we send out. So if anyone has any questions at any time, don't hesitate to reach out and call.
Thanks.
Okay. You have one more thing? No. All right. Well, I thank you all. If there's nothing else, we will be back together in 2 more weeks. Thank you. Have a good day.